Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for being here today. Today's video is brought to you by this mug, which says, I like my coffee how I like my romance novels. Hot and steamy, which it definitely is. Are you seeing the steam coming off of this? Probably not. That was a weird shot. And this is overbrewed, so I'm gonna take this out now. Anyway, today's video is going to be my romance TBR of 2022. So these are all romances that come out this year that I'm really excited about. I feel like the romance genre has helped my mental health so much over the last year. I mean, we've got professional help like therapy, and then we also have just the romance genre in general, which has also helped me so much. So I'm going to talk about some arcs that I read at the end of 2021 that are releasing in 2022. And then I'm also going to just be talking about some books that have really caught my eye over the last couple of months that I'm really excited to read this year. And I just think it's going to be a grand old time. So grab yourself a mug of something hot and steamy, unless it's warm where you live, in which case grab yourself a glass of water, because Lord knows I have not been drinking enough of that these days. And let's hydrate together and talk about some romance, talk about some steam, and just talk about books we're excited to read. So if you have any romances that you're really interested in, please leave them down below. Please let me know what romances have caught your eye recently. Let me know if there are just any romances in general. Maybe they came out before this year, but you're finally going to read them in 2022 and you're really excited about it. I'm here to talk about romance and I'm excited to get to it. So let's take a sip and then we'll get into the romances I've already read that come out this year. That's a little hot. That's a little hot, and that's a lot overbrewed. My lord. Okay, so we're gonna begin with some arcs. The first one I'm gonna mention is this book called Meet Me in the Margins. But Meet Me in the Margins is a book that I read in the fall, and I really enjoyed it. It's basically one of my favorite things, which is a romance based in the publishing industry. So any romance that has to do with reading or book clubs or authors or publishing houses, I'm really into. And so this one takes place in a publishing house, but it's also a little bit of You've Got Mail, the movie. So the two romantic leads are communicating through the margins of a manuscript, but they don't actually know who the other person is. So they're developing feelings for a stranger, essentially, and it's catnip. Hi. It's everything I could ever want in a romance. It was really, really sweet. Although there wasn't a lot of steam, which is something very high on my list in a romance, I did really like the kind of quirky, who is this person in the margins? They're being a little harsh with their criticism on my writing, but they're also helping me write a better story. And that's kind of the feeling in You've Got Mail. Like there's definitely tension and they don't get along all the time, but they're definitely attracted to each other. So I thought it was really fun. I love the mystery of not knowing like who the other person is. I mean, you as the reader know what's going on. But I like that kind of like, ooh, who's this person? Is it this person that I work with or this person that I work with? What if it's this person? And I just thought it was really sweet. So I'm excited for people to get their hands on that one and to meet me in the margins. Right? Totally. Just ignore this light right here. It's just what's happening. I had set up a really cool kind of backdrop, and then I was like, this is too high stakes. I just want to sit down and drink some tea. I don't want like this full production. And so we're dealing with this, so just ignore it. The next book is On a Night Like This. This is a Cinderella retelling, aka I was interested and intrigued immediately. Basically, so Cinderella format, right? We've got a woman that essentially ends up at a ball, but she's like anonymous, and she meets someone there, and there's a connection, but she's anonymous. But what's really cool leading up to the ball is that our main character the Cinderella of characters, is like really, really organized assistant who is basically the assistant of a super famous pop star for like a week before this big ball happens. And so you kind of get this glimpse into what it is, what it's like to be an assistant, like an executive assistant at her level, which I have a huge amount of respect for. I often talk to executive assistants, and holy hell, their level of organization and attention to detail is out of this world. And so that was really fun, just kind of like reading about this cool profession. Like, she's the assistant to this popular pop star who like is making a lot of bad life decisions. And you're trying to see, you know, just how their dynamic works and how the ball happens, because the pop star is supposed to be the main performer at the ball. And so you're kind of just watching that, and, you know, it's just a really fun Cinderella retelling. And I thought that it was cool because it's definitely a retelling because you're following the same formula, but because of this like pop star, Met Gala, Italian coastline format, I just thought it was really fun and unique. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Next up, now I'm going to say very little on this book because at this point I've mentioned it a few times and I need to back off and cool down. But that is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Dear heavens, one of my favorite romances. Definitely my favorite Emily Henry romance. I think if I had to rank them right now, it would be Book Lovers, then Beach Read, then People We Meet on Vacation. But this is just a really fun romance that takes place in a small town. But the main woman is super career-driven and career-focused and, like, does not make any apologies for how driven she is in her career. And I loved that. I loved her whole, like, she's so good at her job and she knows that she has a problem with making time for her personal life, and she doesn't give a shit. She's like, this is what's going on, and I'm fucking good at my job, and I'm gonna keep being good at my job. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. I thought that the romance was super believable. So I loved it, and I will continue to sing its praises, and hopefully when all of you read it in May, you also sing its praises, because I thought it was pretty exceptional. All right, next up is an arc that I'm reading right now that I have not officially finished, but it comes out in April of this year, and that is Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead, which, let's talk about it for a second. Ashley Winstead is the author of In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which is like a super good thriller murder mystery that came out at the end of 2021. And now her second published novel is a romance. It's really good. So I'm only on chapter 6, but some information just came out in chapter 5 that literally made my jaw drop. I was like, you're kidding me, right? There is no way you're doing this right now. So I'm really into it. It basically is just following this girl who works in, she works in politics, and she's trying to get this green machine bill passed where all government issued vehicles are electric vehicles. So she's really high up in this initiative, and the person that's added to her campaign is her ex-boyfriend, who she ruined 5 years ago. Like, she is 100% at fault with what happened between them. And so she has to work with this guy who she knows she hurt really bad, who she knows she manipulated and sabotaged. And he's like now kind of in charge of where her career goes from here. And it's just so fun. I love like a romance where exes reunite and there's like tension and anger and unresolved issues. But there's like that moment when they first see each other for the first time and you're just like, what now? So, yeah, I think that so far it's really, really fun. The physical tension is there. The emotional tension is there. And I'm just having a ball with it. So it's been really great. And it's just like a really refreshing humor and tension that I feel like maybe because I've read so many romances recently that, not that they all blend together, but you're just like, this is just another romance I'm reading. And I feel like Fool Me Once is kind of breaking it up, where I'm like, oh, this is a little unexpected. I'm enjoying this. So that's Fool Me Once. Okay, and then the last book, this was not an arc, but it came out in January, so I've already read it, and that is Electric Idol by Katie Roberts. This is the second book in the Dark Olympus series. I don't know what the series name is called, but Neon Gods is the first book, and then Electric Idol is the follow-up. I would recommend reading Neon Gods first if you're interested in this book. I mean, technically you could get away with it, but you'll just have better context for the world and the city that they're living in, and like the politics of what happened in the first book makes a lot more sense if you've read it, because it pops up in the second book. So this Neon Gods is about Hades and Persephone, and then the second book is about Psyche and Eros. So you're watching as the two of them are kind of developing feelings for each other in a time and place where they should not be developing feelings for each other. In fact, one of them is supposed to kill the other one, and then they end up feeling some tension and some attraction and some feelings. So it's really fun. I will say that I think I enjoy Electric Idol more from a romantic perspective. I liked the relationship development a little bit more in Electric Idol, but there's better steam in Neon Gods. And Electric Idol only slightly wins on the romantic side. I feel like Neon Gods had a pretty good like character romantic connection. I think I like Neon Gods more because it was just like the first book in the series. But I feel like Electric Idol does a really good job at like standing on its own and not feeling like it's just like a rushed follow-up. I think that it was really good. And now that brings me to the next book on this list, which is the third book in this series. Let's find out what it's called. Wicked Beauty. Wicked Beauty is the third book in the Dark Olympus series. I was right, it is the Dark Olympus series. It comes out on June 7th, 2022, and it is a three-way love story between Helena Troy, Achilles, and Patroclus. So we've got a bit of tension, a bit of steam that I know is on the horizon. So, you know, I'm interested in it. I was kind of hoping the third book would be from another character, because another character in the series gets a lot of attention towards the end of the second book. So when I found out that the third one was about someone else, I was like, I mean, sure, I'll read it, but not exactly what I was going for. And in any case, you know, I'll read it and I'll be happy about it. Okay, so those are the books that I've already read, and now we'll get into just some general books that I'm really excited to read this year that I think are just going to be pretty fantastic. And we're going to start with Delilah Green Doesn't Care. This book sounds so fun, and it sounds like the tension is real. So basically, there is a woman who moves away from her small town, and then she is asked to come photograph a wedding. I think it's a wedding for her sister. And she's also getting offered a lot of money to shoot this wedding, because she's a pretty famous photographer. So she inevitably goes home. She doesn't want to, but she does. And when she's there, she runs into someone who she's always kind of been around in her hometown, but the two of them have never been close. And this other woman runs a little bookshop in the town and has a daughter, and I think went through a pretty bad breakup or divorce. And so you have one woman who's just like, I don't want to fall in love. Like, I don't want anything. I don't want to complicate my life. I have a daughter that I have to take care of, and I don't want to deal with anything. And then you have another woman who doesn't want to be in this small town, but since she's like, I might as well make the best of it. And she, I think, is trying to shake the ground under the other woman's feet. So there sounds like it's going to be a lot of tension. I have good feelings about this. I also really like the cover. There's a lot of like purple lavender covers out right now for romance, and I'm into it. I'm loving it. It's peaceful, it's calm, and it's sweet, and I love it. Okay, I like how I was like, ignore this line, but you can see me moving further and further from it because now it's right in the center of my shot. Anyway, let's get into the two physical arcs that I have. The first one is American Royalty, which, first of all, just look at this incredible cover. I love the like ruby red, like the cover's ruby red, but then her eye makeup is ruby red, and it's just so beautiful. Basically, this is about sexy driven rapper Danielle Duchess Nelson is on the verge of signing a deal that'll make her one of the richest women in hip hop, which is super exciting. But then something from her past, yes, but an incident with a rising pop star has gone viral, unfairly putting her deal in jeopardy. And so she has to try to recover her image, like in the industry, in media. So then she decides, she like signs up for this benefit concert that is being held by the Prince of England, Prince Jameson, and he's super private. Like he tries to just keep to himself. He puts his head down and just like gets his shit done. And so he's the one organizing this benefit concert for the Queen of England. And the two of them meet, and apparently there's like instant connection and like instant steam, but like they are like working with each other. And then, I mean, both of them, doesn't want to be in the press, and she's trying to recover her reputation. And so there's just this like, but they're both famous, so now they're like put back in the spotlight, and they're both having trouble with that. So I think it sounds great. I do have to say thank you so much to Avon Books for sending me this copy. I'm so excited to read it. I think that the tension sounds great, and the kind of like, oh, we're just professionals, like I'm just doing this benefit concert to like do what I need to do, but then they like see each other and it's like a connection, you know? Really into that, and I like this idea of like they are trying to recover their like private lives, but in the public eye. And like, how does that work? So I think it's going to be great, and I can't wait to read it. Next up, we have Something Wilder by the author duo Christina Lauren. Very exciting, but I got to interview Christina and Lauren at the end of 2021, and it was so excited. I did it with Likewise, and it was just like such a cool thing to do, and I was so happy to be asked. But when I was interviewing them, they mentioned their new book, which is Something Wilder, which sounds super fun. It's basically this romance where the main girl has like a treasure hunting business in the like mountainside of Utah, and so like she takes people on like treasure hunting adventures. And then one day she's about to go like, you know, take someone on a tour, and it's her ex-boyfriend with all his friends. And so like they've now come in contact, and she has to like be professional and deal with this, but is also kind of like, this hurts. So I just really liked the idea of like treasure hunting. We've got some like national treasure vibes, and this like ex-boyfriend walking into her life, and she like has to keep it cool and try to like just keep doing her thing. Sounds super fun to me, and I think it's going to be a cool like shakeup with Christina Lauren's writing. I've read a number of their books, and I'm just really excited to see one like out in the wild and like in this like really cool Utah cliffside setting. So I think it's going to be great, and I can't wait for it. All right, this next book is called Love and Other Disasters, which sounds so good. Again, we have another romance that's kind of taking place in the public eye, despite the fact that maybe this romance or the romantic couple doesn't want to be in the public eye. So let me read you the synopsis, because I just feel like it gets it so well. Recently divorced and on the verge of bankruptcy, Delilah Woodson is ready to reinvent herself on the popular reality competition show Chef's Special. Too bad the first memorable move she makes is falling flat on her face, sending fish tacos flying. Not quite the fresh start she was hoping for. Still, she's focused on winning until she meets someone she might want a future with more than she needs the prize money. Then it says, after announcing their pronouns on national television, London Parker has enough on their mind without worrying about the klutzy competitor stationed in front of them. They're there to prove the trolls, including a fellow contestant and their dad, wrong, and falling in love was never part of the plan. As London and Delilah get closer, reality starts to fall away. Goodbye, guilt about divorce, anxiety about uncertain futures, and stress from transphobia. Hello, hilarious shenanigans on set, wedding crashing, and spontaneous dips into the Pacific. But as the finale draws near, Delilah and London's steamy relationship starts to feel their heat both in and outside the kitchen. And they must figure out if they have the right ingredients for happily ever after. Okay, I read the word steamy in that synopsis and I'm here for it 100%. So that just sounds great. Again, we have that kind of like public TV or like just out in the world kind of romance, trying to figure out like, I mean, there's going to be a level of attention that comes with these two people on TV kind of having this connection. I feel like this is going to be really fun and also just like the discussions around gender and divorce and love and like the public's perceptions of oneself, I feel like is going to be really great. It's going to be a great addition to this romance. And I'm really hopeful that it's a happily ever after. So that one sounds great. And then, of course, I just mentioned there's another book on this list that reminds me of this, which is Fake It Till You Bake It. And this is a romance that takes place on a baking show. So there's this woman whose reputation has been ruined recently, and she takes this job at this little bakery that's run by a professional football player. And the two of them, I think they're just like together at one point, like they're just having a conversation and someone sees them and is convinced that there's something going on between them. And so they join this baking show and they join it under the pretense of fake dating. Like they want, I think they're both trying to get fresh starts. They're trying to get business for the bakery. She's trying to like relaunch her public perception. And so they start fake dating on the show, and then some things might start happening between the two of them. And it just sounds so fun. I mean, I love the Great British Bake Off. So like, I think there's going to be some really fun, like challenge-based conversations, right? Like about like baking things together and having to like be a team, but also like just great descriptions of confections and cakes and things like that. I think it's going to be really fun. And I just think it's going to be great. It's going to be one of those romances that I think will be the perfect balm to a bad day, you know? And so I'm going to save this for when I need to kind of go somewhere else. You know, I need to go to a happy, fun place. And I think this book is going to be just that. Next up, we have a very exciting romance, which is called Thank You for Listening by who? Julia Whalen, who is my favorite audiobook narrator. Her voice, like I wonder if there's a way that I could ask her to narrate my own funeral before it ever even happens, right? Because of how much I love her voice. It is so soothing and powerful, and I just love it so much. So she's written a couple of books, but this newest book, Thank You for Listening, is specifically about an audiobook narrator. So usually she just puts her head down and she just gets her audiobooks recorded, but she specifically tries to stay away from romance novels. Like she doesn't like narrating romance novels. And then she's asked specifically to narrate this really famous new release. And it's a romance, and she resists and she doesn't want to, but then she's like, wait a second, this could help my family. And so I think she takes the job. And I don't know how she meets the love interest. I don't really know how it becomes a romance. I just think that in and of itself, it sounds really fun. And I love when an author writes about what they know, right? So like, I love when authors write about authors. But I also love, you know, just that this is an audiobook narrator who like knows what to do and knows the, you know, what the job entails and like how it goes and all these things. Like she knows the industry, and now she's writing a romance based in it. And for the love of God, if she does not narrate the audiobook, I will sue her. I will sue Julia Whalen, LLC. The sun just set. What's going on? I don't know what just happened. The sun disappeared behind a cloud. And so now it's looking really gloomy. But I think it's going to be great. And I can't wait for it. And I love Julia Whalen. So I have high hopes for it. All right, next up, we have Ramón and Julieta. This is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. Oh, and I just love a good retelling these days. These Violent Delights is also a Romeo and Juliet Juliet retelling, and it was so good. It was so good. I still have not read the sequel. I need to, desperately need to, because of how much I liked These Violent Delights. But this is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, more focused on the romance, whereas These Violent Delights is more focused on like the thrilling fantasy aspect of it. So Ramón and Juliet is about this couple, or these two people that are instantly attracted to each other, but they can't act on it, or they shouldn't act on it, because their families are rivals within the restaurant industry. So one of the grandparents stole a really important recipe many years ago. At least that's the story. We'll see if it was really stolen or not. But I guess since then, the families have been bitter rivals. So they're instantly attracted, but are they allowed to act on it is another story. And I love a good retelling, but I also love this idea of like, it's the same as like a pho love story, where it's also kind of Romeo and Juliet based in the restaurant industry and having rivalry restaurants. But like being attracted to each other is still something they can't ignore. So I think it's going to be great, and it's going to be super fun, and I can't wait to read it. And it's just going to be great. And I hope it's steamy, because I could see the tension in this one being great. And I hope it is. So, yeah. Next up, I'm really excited about this book, Circling Back to You. Now, this is a kind of workplace romance where these two coworkers are just really good friends. And they just I think they just have a really good banter and a good connection. And, they're just, great pals in the workplace. And then one weekend he asks her to be his fake date to meet his family. I think what happened was that he promised that he was dating someone because his family really wants him to get married. And so he was like, oh, I'm already dating someone. And then he asks his coworker to just act like they're dating for a weekend. And in this new setting, right, for the longest time, they've just been workplace buddies. And now there's a bit of a connection, a bit of a romantic thread that begs to be unraveled. I think that a workplace romance is just really fun to me, but then also kind of having this like personal stake in it is really cool. So I am excited for this one. All right, next up, I'm really excited about this book, I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. This is the same author that wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue, and One Last Stop. So I know I'm going to really like the writing. From what I gather, it's about this high schooler named Chloe Green, who is really invested in being the top student in her class in high school. And her biggest competition is Shara Wheeler, who is the prom queen. And so they're both fighting for the top spot, but only one can win, obviously. And then Shara kisses Chloe and then disappears. And so Chloe is trying to find Shara through some like notes and some clues that are left behind. And so I think it's this cool kind of mix of like competition that turns romantic, but then turns into a little bit of a mystery of like following these clues and trying to figure out what happened. And so I think it's going to be really fun. Next up, I'm really excited about this book, Yerba Buena, which has one of the best covers I've seen so far in 2022. I'm obsessed with the cover of this book. I love like the split colors with the little pot or the little vase of flowers. I think it looks amazing. So this is an interesting book because I believe it's two separate storylines about two different women who get their own portions of the book where you're just kind of figuring out these characters separately, and then they end up working with each other and there's an instant connection. Okay, so the synopsis is, when Sarah Foster runs away from home at 16, she leaves behind not only the losses that have shattered her world, but the girl she once was, capable of trust and intimacy. Years later in Los Angeles, she is a sought-after bartender, renowned as much for her brilliant cocktails as for the mystery that clings to her. Across the city, Emily Dubois is in a holding pattern. In her 7th year and 5th major as an undergraduate, she yearns for the beauty and community her Creole grandparents cultivated, but is unable to commit. On a whim, she takes a job arranging flowers at the glamorous restaurant Yerba Buena and embarks on an affair with the married owner. When Sarah catches sight of Emily one morning at Yerba Buena, their connection is immediate, but the damage both women carry and the choices they have made pulls them apart again and again. And so you're seeing if the two of them are actually able to make a relationship happen, or if it's just a connection that might not be able to sustain the real world. But I just think that sounds so cool. We have like this renowned bartender and this florist. And I really like the idea of these two separate characters with their own complex backstories coming together for one romance, because I find that usually in romance, there's like one main character who gets most of the backstory, and then there's like the side character who has more mystery. And so I really like that these two women are approaching this romance as two separate beings with hardships and hurt and damage, and they're seeing if love can actually exist between the two of them. So I think it sounds fantastic, and again, this cover is just exceptional. And then for my final 3 books, I mentioned these in my Cupid book tag, but if you haven't seen it, there's 3 more romances I'm excited about, and then we'll call it. We'll say that this is the end of the video. The first one is Bet On It. Remember, I was talking about that lavender color on romance covers, and this one definitely has that. But this is this really cute bingo romance where I think the 2 love interests are at a bingo night to support their grandparents, and then the 2 of them connect, right? They score bingo. Okay. But I love the cover and I think it sounds cute and I love bingo. So there you go. I also am really excited about this book, Booked on a Feeling. Again, I mentioned this, but I really love a romance that takes place within a book club or reading or a bookstore or the publishing industry. And this book definitely has that. And I just think the cover is so cute. So I'm really, really excited for this one. I think that's where we're going to call this video. At this point, I've been recording for an hour. Hey everyone, editing Noelle here. I felt like at the end of this video, I was really, really rushed because I had been recording for an hour. And so there were two main books that I forgot to mention by the end of this video, and I need to mention them now because I'm really excited about them. The first one is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emeze, who's the same author that wrote The Death of Vivek Oji, which is an exceptional novel. It's phenomenal. One of my favorites of all time, I think. So it sounds amazing. Let me read you the synopsis. The synopsis is Feye Adekola wants to learn how to be alive again. It's been 5 years since the accident that killed the love of her life, and she's almost a new person now, an artist with her own studio and sharing a brownstone apartment with her ride-or-die best friend Joy, who insists it's time for Feye to ease back into the dating scene. Feye isn't ready for anything serious, but a steamy encounter at a rooftop party cascades into a whirlwind summer she could have never imagined. A luxury trip to a tropical island, decadent meals in the glamorous home of a celebrity chef, and a major curator who wants to launch her art career. She's even started dating the perfect guy, but their new relationship might be sabotaged before it has a chance by the dangerous thrill Feye feels every time she locks eyes with the one person in the house who is most definitely off limits. This new life she asked for just got a lot more complicated, and Feye must begin her search for real answers. So this book sounds phenomenal. I already know that the writing's going to be amazing because I've read Akwaeke Emeze and it was exceptional. But this just sounds fantastic, like dealing with grief and loss, but then like also the forbidden fruit of someone that they can't have, that's like living in the house, and just like finding love again and doubt and drama. I just think it sounds so good. And then the other book I'm really excited about is Something Fabulous by Alexis Hall. This looks so good, especially from someone who has studied so much 19th century fucking literature. This just sounds so good. So So the synopsis for Something Fabulous is Valentine Leighton, the Duke of Malvern, has twin problems, literally. It has always been his father's hope that Valentine would marry Miss Arabella Tarleton, but unfortunately too many novels at an impressionable age have caused her to grow up romantic. So romantic that a marriage of convenience will not do, and after Valentine's proposal, she flees into the night, determined never to set eyes on him again. Arabella's twin brother, Mr. Bonaventure Bonnie Tarleton, has also grown up romantic and fully expects Valentine to ride out after Arabella and prove to her that he's not the cold-hearted cad he seems to be. Despite copious misgivings, Valentine finds himself on a pell-mell chase to Dover with Bonnie by his side. Bonnie is unreasonable, overdramatic, annoying, and beautiful, and being with him makes Valentine question everything he thought he knew. So, that sounds so good. I love how it challenges, like, 19th century tropes of, like, or just, like, what really happened of, like, women not being able to read romance because they were too impressionable and would, like, start having ideas about romance and love and following their heart. And I just think it sounds really cool, and like reading this romance that's like set in the 19th century, but like challenges what was expected in the 19th century, just sounds fantastic. So those are two more books that I'm really thrilled about this year, and now I'll wrap up the video. So actually I'll just wrap up the video. I won't take it back to Noel. But that's today's video, my friends. I hope you all had fun. Please let me know what romances you're really excited about in 2022. And yeah, thanks so much for being here. Hope you had fun, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!